Adam, so you're technically like an uncle again with Dre's new grandchild?
Yeah, another one, yeah.
Yeah, like the whole brood is growing.
I know, it's all the COVID babies.
Yeah, that's true. Tom, you look thrilled. You look thrilled.
17 games.
All right, full house. Fire away.
I think when Pat was talking just about the offensive firepower that the Cardinals have, especially with DeAndre Hopkins, he says, he's kind of a guy that invites physicality and it's a chess match, and that he enjoys that. How do you see a player like Hopkins use that and also use his experience to his benefit?
Yeah, he uses his size and his physicality to his advantage for sure. He's got really good size. He knows how to use his hands, and he knows how to fight you at the line of scrimmage. I think Pat would know that as good as anybody. I remember when Hopkins came here and we played against when he was with Houston, him and Xavier had some really good battles because Xavier's a physical corner as well, and that was at first I noticed that in Hopkins, but he definitely knows all the tricks of the trade on how to be physical and get off the press and get by you, and he has huge hands. He can go up and get the ball.
How hard is it to contain Murray, and what's your focus in trying to contain a player that athletic?
Well, it's got to be a group effort. Number one, we got to play with great effort the whole game. We can't just assume somebody's got him down, because he can get out of a lot of different things. He's extremely fast, so we have to take great angles to the football. We got to have eyes on him. I think that's the main thing. We got to have a lot of guys with eyes on him and try to keep him in the pocket as best as we can with our rush plan. But he likes to get out of the pocket, and so when he does, we have to do a great job of staying on the receivers and then chasing them down when we have the opportunity.
A lot of times when you've had these mobile quarterbacks on the schedule, it's been Anthony Barr getting a lot of the spying responsibilities. If you don't have him on Sunday, how does that change the way you deal with Kyler Murray?
Well, I won't go into specifically who, but I think it'll be a group effort. We might have a defensive lineman do it one time. We might have a linebacker do it another time, or even a DB do it at some point. We just give them a bunch of different looks, and so they don't know who's the one looking at them all the time. And sometimes it's the whole defense. Sometimes you're not specifically spying him, but you're in his own coverage, and everybody's responsible for him.
How did Nick Vigil fill in, and what does a player like that need to do when he has such an elevated role?
Yeah, I think Nick did a great job in the game. He covered well. He fit the run really well. Obviously, got the sack. Was helped out a little bit by the call on that one, but he did a nice job. He's a great communicator, which helps having the green dot in there for us. I think he did a good job of calling the huddle, setting the front, and things like that. Nick's a pro. He's been around the league for a long time. He's had that role before, and I'm really comfortable with him in the game. He's really impressive on the sideline. He can tell you exactly what happens. Without even looking at the pictures, he can say, oh, that guard pulled here, and I needed to spill him and I didn't, or things like that. So his experience, I think, helps him out a whole lot.
How much of that is just kind of stuff you guys are learning about him as you get to coach him more, versus how much of that did you guys kind of know when you signed him?
Yeah, Paul coached him, so we had a kind of a good idea about how smart he was, but I really didn't have that feel until really a couple weeks into training camp, where he really was able to just tell me exactly what's happening in practice and do those sorts of things. So, I think we had a little bit of background with Paul, and I remember grading him in the draft and interviewing for a draft, but it's mostly, I've learned that a lot as the last couple weeks, actually.
Did it help that he played in Cincinnati before, and can you lean on him in game planning or anything like that?
Yeah, he knows the system. I think it helps that way, and so he's seen some of the things that we do. Now we're doing a lot of different things than we did in Cincinnati now, but I think the terminology and stuff really came quickly to him because he's heard it before, and I think that definitely has helped.
Adam,
It's only
Eric
week
Kendrick-
2. Oh, go ahead.
Eric Kendricks talked earlier today just about like the impact of this year's defensive line and like having Michael and Delvin in there in the middle. I guess just from your vantage point, how did you see the linebackers benefiting from that group on Sunday?
Well, he benefited huge. Those guys are big bodies. I was standing there looking at Mike Pierce the other day and looking at his quads, and they're like the size of my waist. I was like, that's a big body in there trying to run the ball inside on those guys is a challenge for most teams. And I think for the most part, the runs that hit in the game were ones that were more to the perimeter. We had a couple that hit in the middle, but one was on 2nd and 13 or 2nd and 20, and we were in a different call. So. Those guys help immensely. It lets the linebackers flow. They're hard to move in double teams, and they can come downhill and the linebackers can flow and find the football.
I mean, it's obviously not all about the sack, but when you guys have success in game 1, but what can it do, like, as an intangible kind of excitement-wise? I know that you talked about Pearson. He was thrilled. I mean, what can that do for a defense already?
Yeah, anytime you have a pass rush, it helps everything. It helps the coverage. It helps just about any aspect of the game. And I think one of the things last year was we were trying to manufacture pass rush a lot, whether it be with 5-man pressure or simulated pressure or things like that. And this year, I think we have the ability. We have pass rushers that we can get after them and with 4 guys, and that allows us to play some different coverages and help on different guys and some areas that we were kind of hindered at last year.
Adam, I know you can't get into like specifics, but when you have a guy like Patrick Peterson or other guys that we've had in the past where they're going against their former team or a team that's really familiar with them, like, do you have to take that into account when kind of planning how you use that player? Or like, does that impact game plan for that player or not really?
I don't think you take the game plan into it. I think you have to have in mind that they know what Patrick is good at and where they'd like to attack him. So we'll have that in mind. I think you can lean on Patrick and ask him about their personnel. What has worked for him against Hopkins in practice, or against some of these running backs or tight ends. What their skill set is. I think those things can help you. As far as scheme things, you can get an idea, but Patrick would probably know more about what their defense does, because once you get into the season, you're just focused on your job, not what your offense is doing.
Are you guys kind of able to get the same benefit in terms of AJ Green, given the number of people on the defensive coaching staff that have coached him or practiced against him before?
Yeah, I think AJ's obviously a great receiver, and he was really great with us in Cincinnati. And I do think we have an idea of his skill set and what we think is the best way to guard him. Obviously, he's a really good player, and we're going to have to go out there and execute. But I think we do have an idea of what his strengths and weaknesses are.
Kendricks was talking about consistency, and granted it's only week 2, but what would you like to see more of them in terms of consistency that kind of slacked off last game?
Yeah, for the most part, I thought we played very, very well, except for a lull at the end of the third quarter, or at the end of the second quarter and the first drive of the third quarter. And so that's been an emphasis this week of not having that lull. Okay, we want to finish the half. And not give up points at the half, and not have that. We had some mental lapses there that we weren't having early in the game, and then coming out of halftime, executing out of halftime, and not giving up more points when that happens. So, you take away those 3 drives. I thought we played really well, but you can't take away those drives. They're still there, and they led to points, and that ultimately led to the result. The result.
Do you think heat plays a role in that at all with focus or not?
I don't think the Heat had an effect in that game. I thought we weren't sucking wind on the sideline. We had hardly any plays right before those 2 drives because we were getting so many 3-and-outs. So I think it was just bad eyes on one play, lack of, we jumped off sides and they went deep one time. So I don't think it was the heat, and I wouldn't use that as an excuse.